Connecting the SWAC, the MEAC, SIAC, and the CIAA. The HBCU experience lives here. It's the HBCU Report with Bob Calloway.
This is the HBCU Report. Rob Calloway here. Happy Saturday to you and yours. We are back and better than ever. Thank you guys for tuning in, however you may be listening. In addition to 2LifeStewsRadio.com, the show can also be heard live via the TuneIn Radio app and also iHeartRadio. Don't forget, we're available on demand via Google Play for Android and also iTunes. And when we're not here, we're there. There is our content partner, sportsnewsandbrews.com. Got to make sure you check out the website. And speaking of the website, we are looking for contributors. I've been saying that for the past few weeks. Don't forget, hit me up, hbcureport@gmail.com if you're interested. We cover everything. Just check out the website. You'll see. We cover beer. We cover weed. We cover athletics. I don't know if all of that goes together. Maybe that's why. Anyway. But, yeah, we cover a lot of things on the website. So if you have any of those interests, politics, sports, well, the tagline for the website actually is sportsnewsandbrews.com, your official source for sports, black news, political news, and the latest on your favorite craft beers. That's what it is, or something like that. But anyway, happy Saturday, guys. Glad you all could join us. Got another great show lined up for you and yours. Of course, we have the Battle of the Real HU coming up today, 1 o'clock kickoff from Hampton, Virginia, where we'll see the Howard University Bison travel to Hampton and their heated rivalry. Now, that isn't even the biggest story coming out of this big game. Even though, and shouts out to Hampton. Howard, one loss in the MEAC. Sucks for them that North Carolina A&T is just so good this year. But anyway, the biggest story coming out of the Battle of the Real HU is the fact that Hampton announced this week that they're leaving the MEAC and headed to the Big South Conference. The Big South Conference, what is that? Well, for those of you here in Atlanta, the Big South Conference is actually the conference that Kennesaw State plays in, and we know how great Kennesaw State is right now, right? Like, this program came on the scene and didn't miss a beat. My God. Georgia State should take a page out of the book of Kennesaw State because, man, they're doing it right up there. But Gardner-Webb is also a part of that conference, and Monmouth and a couple other institutions. I think that Hampton will actually make the 8th. And so it's crazy because you also have Savannah State leaving the conference at the end of the football season as well. But nobody's going to miss Savannah State. I mean, hey, this program is in the toilet. Anyway, this is the HBCU Report being heard via 2LifeStewsRadio.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. Tuskegee, shouts out to them. Excuse me. Shouts out to Tuskegee on their victory last weekend over Fort Valley, 13-6, to clinch another SIAC title. Shouts out to Coach and the guys over there. But sucks to be them. They got snubbed in the D2 playoffs, so they won't be making a 4th straight appearance this year. And then we've got Reggie Barlow and the guys, Virginia State University, the Trojans, blasted University. You remember last week, Fayetteville State, they stood us up. But Reggie and the guys got it done, 42-19. And so they are the CIAA football champions. And good news for them is that they're headed to the playoffs. They're in the playoffs today. They actually host West Georgia. And then Delta State will be traveling to Bowie State. So the CIAA has 2 representatives in the D2 playoffs. So big shouts out to them. That's kind of big. When you start talking about the playoffs and, a lot of these teams do a lot of things just to get to the playoffs. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Hampton is actually making this move because, they want the exposure. They want the TV rights. They want the money. They want all of that. And so coming up on today's show, we will talk with Coach Connell Maynor of the Hampton University Pirates, the head football coach of the Pirates. And we'll also be joined by Mike London, Who is Mike London? Well, the name might sound familiar. This guy's been around a lot of years in the ACC as a head coach, also as an assistant head coach and coordinator. He's now the head coach at Howard University, and they've come on like gangbusters. And they had a huge statement game. The first game, UNLV took them down, the largest, the biggest upset in college football history, from a conference level, from a point spread level, all of that. They did that. So Mike London also going to join the show today. But before we go any further, and I definitely have to talk about North Carolina A&T before we go to commercial break, but something that I haven't mentioned in the past few weeks that I definitely have to make sure that we talk about is the 2018 Black College Football Hall of Fame Enshrinement Day. It happens February 10th. I know it's like a long ways away, but not really, because February 10th will be here before you know it. But I just want to send shouts out to all the guys that actually are being enshrined this year. Let's see, where are we? Here we go. Got these names right here. Harold Carmichael of Southern University, Raymond Chester of Morgan State, Thomas Hollywood Henderson of Langston University, and shouts out to Hollywood. That cat's been doing some good with these players that have been battling with substance abuse, because he battled with substance abuse, and he has done some good work with some of these players and getting them to turn their lives back around. So shouts out to Hollywood Henderson. Also, Leo Lincoln Locomotive. This is one of those names that I like right here. Leo Lincoln Locomotive Lewis of Lincoln University is going into the Hall of Fame as well. Greg Lloyd, we all know Greg Lloyd. That dude was a beast out of Fort Valley State University. And then Everson Walls out of Grambling State. And then Coach Bill Hayes, the former coach of Winston-Salem State and also North Carolina A&T, going into the Black College Football Hall of Fame as well. And don't forget the date. Write it down on your calendar if you plan to attend. It is Saturday, February 10th. Saturday, February 10th. We have 84 days until the event. But who's counting, right? No, I'm actually looking at the website. I didn't know that. My math sucks. No doubt about it. All right. Okay, so North Carolina A&T. Shouts out to Coach Rod Broadway and North Carolina A&T. Man, let me tell you something. This team, oh, man, first of all, they were in the very first Celebration Bowl. Tyreek Cohen ran for almost 300 yards in the very first Celebration Bowl a few years ago. They ended up winning that one over Alcorn State. And, the past few years, North Carolina Central has just been nipping. And last year, it came down to the final game of the season, and North Carolina Central pulled it out, and then they represented the MEAC in the Celebration Bowl. But this year, North Carolina A&T went on a streak of historical proportions, not just epic proportions, but historical proportions. Going undefeated in the conference, the first time that they've done that in the 93-year history of their football program. And they just kept rolling right along. And so last weekend's 36-17 win over Savannah State, who I just mentioned a few minutes ago, leaving the conference, that win Saturday assures them a spot in the Celebration Bowl once again. So Rod Broadway and the North Carolina A&T Aggies will be here December 16th. And I say here because this show originates from Atlanta for those of you that might be listening elsewhere. But Coach Rod Broadway and the North Carolina A&T Aggies will be in Atlanta, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's going to be a great event. Not sure, of course, because the SWAC still has some things to work out, and then the SWAC championship still has to happen. But, if you ever listen to this show in any of its variations, whether it was on terrestrial radio or whether it was, podcast, whatever, I've talked about these championship games and how, I would just love for the MEAC to have had a championship game so then they could have an outright champion and then the SWAC could have an outright champion. But, after a season like this, I think I like the way that the MEAC does it without a championship game. And the reason why I say this is because every game means something. Now, I know every game technically means something on the schedule, when we talk about wins and losses. But when you don't have that championship game, there's not a real, large room for error, when you take on teams in your conference. So basically, every conference game is the conference championship game, if you know what I'm saying. And so this year, and this is the crazy part about it, because right now, if it came down to it, Grambling, if I'm not mistaken, without looking at the records, and I'm not looking, let me see if I can't get the records up real quick. Without looking at the records, I want to say Grambling would already have clinched the SWAC, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Yeah, open that up for me right there. Okay. Okay, well, Alcorn State right now in the conference is 5-1. Grambling is 6-0 in the conference. 9-1 overall. Alcorn is 7-3 overall. So, yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, just based on, and I need to look at the remainder of the schedule, but I want to say that Grambling would have already clinched the SWAC. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. They would have already clinched the SWAC, because, let's see, Southern is 5-1. Yeah. So if my math is correct, they would have already clinched, because everybody else is done playing except for, because we have the Bayou Classic next weekend. Don't forget about that next Saturday. Then we've got, Alabama A&M still has a game to play today. Mississippi Valley and Alabama State play today, and then Bama State still has the Turkey Day Classic, but they're out of the conversation. Jackson State and Alcorn play today. They wrap things up. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Texas Southern wrap things up today. And so, yeah. So, yeah, Grambling would have already wrapped this thing up. And seriously, I think I would like to know already. I mean, especially with us already knowing the MEAC representative, because the MEAC is all but done. Today wraps things up with the Florida Classic, and then the Battle of the Real HU, and then what is it? Battle of the Bay. What do they call Morgan State and Norfolk State? I forget. And then you got the Central and A&T game, which, the past few years has been for all the marbles, but at this point, what is it for? I mean, seriously, because here's the situation, and this is the HBCU Report being heard via 2LifeStudiosRadio.com. Yeah, you got me talking some football today. Yeah, I don't really have that much foolery for you all today, so talking football. But here's the thing, as the season winds down, quick, fast, and in a hurry. I was saying that last week. If A&T, because there's some scenarios for those of you that follow the MEAC football. There's some scenarios right now that could play out. But regardless, A&T is in the Celebration Bowl competing for what we consider to be the HBCU National Championship. If North Carolina A&T loses today and Howard wins, then Howard and A&T split the MEAC championship, okay? And then Howard awaits the selection committee from the playoffs, the FCS playoffs, to see if they get selected. All right. So that's really the only scenario. If A&T loses, Howard wins, Howard gets, and see, I think it's an automatic bid, if I'm not mistaken. I think they win the automatic bid. I'm not sure how that works. I think so. Please don't quote me on that. All right. Anything else before we get ready to go to Coach? Let's see. Nah, I think we've talked enough. I think I've done enough. Shouts out to everybody in the chat room. Saturday morning. I appreciate you guys for getting up. If I could just get my folks up on the West Coast, because I know it's early. It's 8 on the East, 5 on the West. But if I could just get my folks out there in Vegas and some other, if I could just get y'all to wake up, check in with your boy. Stop waiting until the podcast is available on demand.